Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Admiral Cisco right back at you. Simon Parks recently did another interview with Connecting Consciousness, and he was asked a question about the infamous crystal skulls. This is a subject matter that is frequently talked about within ufology and the exopolitics community. I want you to listen at what he has to say about the crystal skulls, where they come from, and I want you to pay very close attention to how he really doesn't want to speak on the group that the skulls came from and how he brushes it off once again. I caught his ass. But I want you to listen to this, and I'm going to come back with my 2-cent commentary.
Becky's just said earlier on that there was a crystal question, and I'm looking at the clock and thinking we're running out of time. So could we take the crystal skull question now, please?
Okay, right. Okay, so Barb from New South Wales in Australia has written, "Hi Simon and Becky. Firstly, thank you both for creating CC, a great organisation, and thank you for all the time and effort you share with everyone. Much appreciation. My question: I own an antique crystal skull that came out of Tibet. I have the providence on the skull. A monk gave it to the man I bought it from. The monk was concerned that the CCP might get their hands on it, so wanted it out of the country. I've had it authenticated by a caretaker of an ancient crystal skull that lives in Arizona. She said it's about 150 years old or more, and we've owned it for about 10 years. It's a bit bigger than my fist. It has a silver skull cap and a silver mouth guard, outlining teeth attached with some sort of resin. The fingerprints can be seen in the resin of the person that applied the caps. This skull seemed to turn life upside down for anyone that comes into contact with it, including us. It seems to have a way of exposing the incongruent aspects in one's own life, and the best way I can in one's own life is the best way I can describe it. I no longer display it or use it, and keep it wrapped up and put away in its special case. I have 5 other skulls, but they do not have this effect. One time when I was meditating, I saw a set of brown eyes looking out at me. The look of those eyes was one of surprise and shock as they looked back at me and around my house. I have not worked with a skull since this experience. I have a feeling it contains a very powerful spirit. I'm just not sure if it's benevolent or not, due to the effect it's had on people that come into contact with it. The effects have ranged from relationship breakdowns, job losses, and personally we've had an extraordinary amount of bullying directed at us and loss of many friends. Would Tibetan monks include a type of jinn in this skull? If so, for what purpose? And if not, who might be in there and what purpose might it be for? Should I do anything special with it? I want to do the right and responsible thing by it and by us."
What an interesting question. Thank you for writing it. Thank you, Becky, for pulling that one out. Normally we would say, oh, everything's a jinn, but I don't think that's the case here at all. We go back to that excellent book, Lord of the Rings, and one commentator once said that the world was divided into those who have read Lord of the Rings and those who have yet to read Lord of the Rings. Those of you who have yet to read it, you're not going to know what a palantir is. The crystal ball, the skulls, the true skulls, were communication devices. They were created by a human off-planet group, part of the Sirius star system, and their whole job was literally to enhance telepathic communication. That's very interesting that you told me that the eyes coming out or looking, suddenly you saw a pair of brown eyes. Sirius is the upper 4th dimension. If you hear the words 4th dimension, please don't go into a fit. They divide the 4th into 2 halves, the lower 4th, where all the bad guys are, and the upper 4th, which is not too bad. And Sirius belongs to the upper 4th dimension. In fact, I calculate somewhere between 75 and 85% of all star kids or indigo kids who have come to this planet over the number of waves of energy that we've had of these people incarnating here come from Sirius. There's a long reason for that, we won't go into it at the moment. So crystal skulls are communication devices, and some were found belonging to maybe the 7th century in South America. There are some that are even older. You're saying this one is about 150 years old. Two questions. Firstly, I know you can't answer them yet, but how do we know who's dated it as 150? How do you know that it's not hundreds or thousands of years old? The interesting thing is the silver plates that you've talked about on it. That could be a later addition. Would be surprised if that was the original concept. The original concept of the skulls were created with a laser type technology, far and beyond anything that the human race had at that time. So first of all, we can't be sure of the date, really, unless you've got a bill of sale. Communication devices, that's exactly what they are. What you've got is somebody either from the past, the present, or the future who has activated your crystal skull and is literally looking out of it, and you would have seen a face of horror, shock, because this person has found that this crystal skull that you've got is activated. You've activated it. You're very psychic, and you've activated it. You see, if a really lovely person, but a person with no psychic capability holds a skull, nothing happens. But if you're very psychic and you hold a skull, you activate it. You trigger it, shall we say. So these eyes you're looking at was not a jinn. So there's not a demon in there. There's no demon in there. It's like a way station. It can be activated. Someone can look into it and then look out of it, see what's happening. Now then, you've had bad luck. You didn't use the word, but that's the word we'll use. There are a number of reasons here. One could be that you are the guardian of this object, which is a good object, actually. It's not a bad object. It's a good object. And you are being attacked, and those who come into contact are being attacked by the evil forces because you are guardianship of a piece of technology, that's what these things are, which is detrimental to the cabal or the satanic evil control system. So I think it's more likely that you are being attacked and your life is being affected because people don't like you having that skull. I was very privileged some years ago. Somebody, quite an expert on skulls, said that they had one and wanted to let me have it for a short period of time, because they felt that it had to come and be with me. And I detected no evil in that skull at all. They are communication devices. What do you got to do? Keep it hidden at the moment until you are capable of activating it. Again, Lord of the Rings. Sorry, but that guy Tolkien knew what he was talking about. He did. He really knew. These people from the Illuminati and the elite often know what they're talking about. And in the story where, I think Peregrine Took, or Pippin finds the Palantir, the crystal ball, and looks into it and gets a bit of a shock. And then Strider, Aragorn, looks into it, and hobbits say to him, well, even Gandalf wouldn't have looked in there. And, Aragorn says, I've got both the right and the strength to look in it. And he actually says, the right cannot be doubted, but the strength was enough, barely. Now, before I recite the whole of the book and bore you to death, the point here is that once you have understood what you're dealing with and you've gained the right to use it, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't use that crystal skull to communicate back to the very group of people who are at the other end. Now, you might not want to do that. They're relatively hack-free. This is why they were created, because it's very hard, because it's crystalline. The crystal energy is very closely knit. When combined with the human or semi-human consciousness, it makes it very difficult to break. So what you've got there is a treasure. It could have been inactive for millennia. You've activated it. I suggest you become proficient with it, and you can take its black cover off it, take it out of its box, and then use it for good purposes. But remember that you are going to be assailed, you are going to be attacked. So draw people around you who have knowledge of the crystal skull, people who are willing to support you and help you, protect you, and use the crystal skull for good purposes. It's not an evil object. It is an advanced technology. Just because it doesn't have circuits and lights in it in the way that most people have a concept, it is a piece of technology. So it's a really great question. I haven't had a crystal skull question for simply ages. So I'm very grateful to you and very grateful for Becky for plucking that one out. Thank you.
Okay, Simon. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I wanted you guys to see. We're going back to Simon. It's funny that you said that the person that owns the crystal skull had brown eyes, and that the inventors of these crystalline devices come from the Sirius star system. You said it was a humanoid group. And I also noticed, once again, we can't go into that. And it's probably because they're not the tall, white-skinned extraterrestrials. Let's keep it real, because you're very notorious for not speaking on humanoid extraterrestrials that are non-white looking. But anyway, I want to throw this little tidbit in here because I think Alex Collier was right on the button with this one. But Simon, was this the real reason why you didn't want to discuss the Sirian human beings? Let me play this clip right here.
Have such a mix of different races on the planet. 22 to be in fact. 22 very specific body types. Now I understand there's a 23rd that's evolving. Somebody in the chat room before we started asked about the black race. There are blacks throughout the galaxy and in other galaxies. In this particular galaxy, those here on Earth were seeded from the dog star Sirius constellation, A, B, C, and D. Okay? That's where they came from. Some of the red race also came from Sirius A, Sirius C. The group, those from Sirius B, they need charm school, okay? They need to go back to charm school. They haven't behaved well with us. They haven't treated us well or with any type of respect. And the same is true of other races. But I'm not here to get into all that ancient history.
That's all I want the audience to hear. Simon, I wonder, is that the reason why you don't want to, you don't want to discuss what the Sirians look like? Because you felt they haven't treated your people well? Inquiring minds would like to know. Just out of curiosity. Admiral Cisco, signing off.